Welcome everyone. It's Tuesday, the 18th of June. It's 5:30 here in Palm Springs. And this is the monthly meeting of the Palm Springs Airport Commission. Welcome all, welcome guests. Glad you're all here. We have a big agenda tonight with lots of detail. Most of the content of tonight's agenda is for discussion or for information, not for making any decisions tonight. But there's lots of stuff that's coming out of this. So welcome. We're going to start with the pledge of allegiance. Kevin, I'm going to ask you to do us the honors. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. How did the agenda been posted?
Yes, the agenda has been
Let's
posted.
do roll call, see who's here.
Perfect. Roll call. Commissioners Banks,
Here.
Berryman is excused. Burke,
Present.
Caldwell,
Here.
Corcoran,
Here.
Dada is absent. Delgado is absent. Feltman here, mic is muted.
Here, I undid my mute, sorry.
Thank you. Fong, Hughes, Martin is excused, but intends to be observing via Zoom. Michaelis here. Park is excused. Hi here. Suero is absent. And White.
Here.
Wiseman?
Here.
Young.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? So for the agenda?
Commissioner, just want to have a motion, please, to
Oh,
the agenda?
motion to accept.
Thank you.
Second.
Banks,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Feltman,
Yes.
Fong,
Aye.
Hughes. Yes. Michaelis,
Yes.
Pye,
Yes.
Suero,
Here.
Wise,
Yes.
Wiseman,
Here.
Young.
Yes.
And Suero, we're motioning to accept the agenda. Yeah.
And also thank you.
Thank you.
Time to do public speaker schedule to speak to us tonight.
We have one that has requested, and his name is Richard Gordon. He's requested to make a public comment. Richard, you have 3 minutes.
Less than that. My name is Rich Gordon. I live at 1143 Celadon Street here in Palm Springs. I'm newly engaged as the government and community relations consultant for Fuse Connect. In full disclosure, Scott Jacobson, who is the president and CEO of Fuse, is my nephew. When I moved to Palm Springs in February, he asked me if I would take on this role. I told him at the time I needed a couple of months to unpack the boxes, so I'm only recently engaged. The reason Scott asked me to do this work is that before moving here, in San Mateo County, I served 13 years on the Board of Supervisors, and then spent 6 years in Sacramento serving the State Assembly. I'm here tonight just simply to introduce myself. Fuse will complete its first year of service to the airport on June 30th, and we look forward to presenting you at a future meeting with our progress. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right, anyone else?
I do.
So, when I stop through. Sounds good.
Is there anybody else in the room that would like to make a public comment?
Or online?
Or on Zoom, please raise your virtual Zoom hand if you'd like to make a public comment. We have No public comment.
Just a quick comment, we are down to one owl this evening, one of our owls broke, so please, everyone, when you're speaking, if you could speak a little louder tonight, that'd be terrific. Thank you.
This is for the original office.
This gentleman would like to speak in the general public comments and not in item 8.
Go for it.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Peter Rizzi, 1056 San Lorenzo Road, Palm Springs. I wrote the National Register of Historic Places nomination for this terminal a number of years ago. During the recent open house event at Jupiter, Lawrence, we put on my glasses, excuse me. Your numerous comments from the public opposing the massive contract structure from being located across from City Hall. Its size would be out of scale with the historic buildings across the street. It would require the relocation of the USO building. It would block mountain views from the landmark cruiser terminal. There would be traffic issues on LCL, etc. Of the other potential sites for the building, I don't understand why the area on the south side of Kirk Douglas Way, when you include Lot G, wouldn't work for the contract. There are very large surface parking lots there that could accommodate such a building and would not have the negative issues associated with the LCL location. Yes, passengers would have to take a short shuttle ride, but people are used to doing that. It may not be the absolute best solution from an airport management perspective, but it would alleviate the many concerns expressed by the public and the city council about site plan.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, so next up, we're gonna approve the minutes from January 17th. Any issues with the minutes, any changes to the minutes in the 17th? Can I get a motion to approve, please?
I move.
Second. Roll call, please.
Banks,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Feldman,
yes,
Baum, Hughes. Yes. Michaelis.
Yes.
Pye,
Yes.
Suero,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Wiseman,
Yes.
Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
All approved. Tonight, as many of the June meetings are, it's a little bittersweet because we have to say farewell to two of our very, very, very coveted and appreciated commissioners. I'm going to Harry start. Harry?
So, yeah, we have two commissioners leaving the commission, or rolling off the commission, at least, for the next year. But Commissioner Hughes, I want to thank you for your time on the commission. You really helped us out and been thoughtful in your approach to some of the advice that you give into the airport staff. It's been very helpful for us. Also, Commissioner Suero, same for you. I always love to see the smile on your face when you come in the room, just like you have now. I appreciate that. We wanted to make sure that you guys got plaques. Just a little bit more appreciation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Round of applause, thank you. I wish you could have been here in person, so I had the honor to say thank you to Ahmad. And I hope that you're listening or that you hear a tape of this. For the last 7 years, you've been on the commission, you've led the commission with such grace and charm. But more than that, you have been an extraordinary leader in our community. For over 30 years, being a part owner of the Hilton Hotel, Ahmad has contributed to this community and the growth of this community in so many ways. When I joined the commission, I was thrilled that he was the one leading it because I knew we could learn so much from someone who has had such history and has had such impact in our community. We're sorry you can't be here tonight. We wish him the best of health. But on behalf of the city of Palm Springs, on behalf of all of us here on the commission, we thank you for everything you've done, for everything you've taught us, and we wish you only good health moving forward. Thank you, I appreciate it. Right, we have 3 new commissioners who will be joining us. And they will be going through training at the end of the month, and then they'll be joining us for our next, or for our July meeting. And we'll welcome them officially as new commissioners. I do want to just say hello to Sam McDermott, who's with us. Sam, where are you? There you are. Sam's one of our new ones. Welcome aboard. We'll do this officially, but we'll do the complete ceremony next month, but I wanted to acknowledge you. Also, we're excited that Ken Hendrick is coming back to the committee. You know, Ken has our genius when it comes to bonding and financial issues. He'll be coming back to the committee or to the commission. We're thrilled about that. And also a brand new commissioner, Brian Eversteiner, will be joining us. When you meet Brian and you're introduced to him and he tells you about his background, you'll quickly see why the city council or city commission. Amazing experience that they can contribute a lot to the commission. So we'll make it official through the whole song and dance next month. But congratulations to you, Sam, to Ken and to Brian, and we'll look forward to meeting all of them next month. Okay, let's get right into the agenda. Item 8, baggage claim expansion concept design. Folks from Getzler here, and Gary, you want to take the lead?
Yeah, so as sure the corporate mentioned, we've got a lot of projects, individual projects absent of the master plan that we've been working on, and we wanted to provide the commission with updates on all of those and where we are. There are some, will soon be some decision points on some of these. So we wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on where we are. We're going to start with Gensler and the baggage claim expansion. I believe Neil McLean is on the line, and he's going to walk us through that and where we are so far.
All right, yeah. I'm right here.
I've been sitting here for 10 minutes. I haven't seen
And I have a quick question. I have 2 items, the baggage claim and then the restrooms. Can I keep going through both items or do we need to pause?
You can go through both.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Great. So we have a presentation tonight to give you an update on both of those items. So the bag claim expansion, which we've been working on for a few months, and then also the restroom renovation project, which we are in the basis of design phase right now. On the bag claim, we're about to complete our schematic design phase at the moment. So I wanted to give you an update on the progress that we have to date. So agenda for this evening, bag claim schematic design. I'm also going to review the temporary rental car location very quickly with you. I know that the commission looked at this last month, so we'll talk about the phasing behind moving those elements out of the way, which support the bag claim expansion. And then we'll talk about the restroom planning basis of design. Our goals for the evening is just a move forward from you guys about the bag claim design and then provide you an overview of the restroom planning. So as I mentioned, we'll start with the bag claim schematic design. So our design goals and principles very quickly here. Number 1 is to meet the growing changing demands of Palm Springs International Airport. So we want to expand the bag claim and its capacity and then maintain future flexibility for other phases that are going to come in the future of the airport itself. So we don't want to do anything that's going to be in the way of the future plans, the concourses, or any of those other pieces that are in the master plan. And also at the top of our list is to enhance the passenger experience. So you will see in the design that we have a much larger, clearer space for passengers to get their luggage in this space as well. It's going to be light, it'll be bright, we'll have plenty of room to move around, so we want to increase that passenger experience. And we're also adding 3 single occupant restrooms to the project as well to help with the whole process in that area. And then we want to create a Palm Springs sense of arrival and departures for this project. So reinforce the historic character of the mid-century modern building that we have, and then leverage the unique landscape of Palm Springs itself. So we had some workshops with the airport staff, came up with some ideas regarding what the look and feel should be like, what our theme should be like, but we came down to these 2 basic ideas, making sure that we respect the mid-century modern nature of the airport, but also incorporate the natural beauty of the environment in the project. So the first drawing here is our floor plan, and we are adding approximately 18,000 square feet to the existing facility, so it's going to be about 38,000 square feet for this space here when we're complete. There are 4 new sloped carousel devices in the center of the space. At the back of the space, we have bag service offices. We have some regular offices. We have an employee security screening checkpoint on the far right. And then on the far left, we have a spot for the oversized bags that come in from the apron itself. At the front of the space, we have on that band right at the bottom, some planters for some of the plantings that we're thinking about in the space itself, meter reader areas, and a potential location for a concession in the future. It's not part of our project, but we're preserving some of that space. One of the design advances that we made since the last time that we presented it to some of the subcommittees a few months back was the fact that we have elongated our carousels in the space, so they're longer and thinner, so there's more room to circulate around them. And then as well, we shifted the circulation path to be closer to the front of the building, because in this scheme, based on the fact that we are moving the rail car out of this building on day one, we have more space to work with at the front, and we want to encourage that front circulation path to the existing rental car, but also the future phases that will come to the left-hand side of this plan in the future with the expansion of the airport. So we wanted to maintain that future ability, but we're taking advantage of the fact that on day one, we're moving the rental cars out to a temporary location. They'll be in that location until they relocate into a future COMRAC. This is our look and feel palette for the design of the space. So we're calling this a desert modern mecca. We're trying to connect again between the mid-century modern design that we have in the upper right-hand corner of this board here, but also bring in the natural landscape and bring in some warmth to the space itself. We are also respecting the existing, well, at one point in time, the back lane was completely an exterior space, and there is terrazzo throughout the airport itself. It was enclosed at one point in time. It was a carpeted space, but there's a project underway to revitalize this and connect it back to the past with new terrazzo in this space as well. So that's going to be our one flooring element. We're looking at connecting the original color and design for the terrazzo, and then the layout of the grids on the floor itself will also be reflected from the original floor plans that we have found at the archive of the building when it was built. The grid strips in the terrazzo itself were kind of like diamond-shaped pattern in the center of the building, and then they branch out on both sides and up to the top sides as well in a square pattern. So we're going to be reflecting that pattern as well. I'm sorry, just to take that little detour, I just wanted to show you the floor plan about that, connect it back to the look and feel for the space itself, and then show you a rendering of the proposed space. So I know the colors are a little bleached out in that view there, but again, it's the terrazzo flooring, and on the left-hand side, it's the stone wall that is there already on the space on the exterior side, and then we wanted to open up the glazing to the front, make sure that there's plenty of natural light that comes into the space. And then we wanted to enhance that with new skylights above marching through the space. So this view is taken, if you've just gone down the hall there, you've come past the center area, and you've walked right into the back lane itself, and you're looking forward to the far end where the current rental car facility is, and on the right-hand side are the claim devices in this view. So we are keeping, we're gaining just a little bit of space in our height because we're constrained by the front of the building and the profile that the building has. We want to match what's there today, but we wanted to open up with those skylights so we get more light in the space itself. Let's see what else. On the front exterior of the building, as I mentioned, we are keeping the existing canopy that's out there, and then we are bringing back the columns from the original building itself. So it had a Granulux finish. It was a much smaller column than we have today. It was like a 6x6 tube steel column with the Granulux on the outside and the exposed corners. So that's going to mean that when we redesign all of this, we're going to figure out a way to drain our roof, because those were enlarged at one point in time for roof drains and for electrical outlets and a few other things, that we're going to go back to that original design. And then also, we are trying to incorporate more of that stone on the outside from the original building, bringing that along with the side. And if you've ever seen an original rendering, which I don't have with me, of the original building, the stone kind of wrapped the far end corner, kind of anchored it at one end. It had an asymmetrical design. So we're trying to emulate that at the far left end, but also those horizontal planes are very important to this building. So we're maintaining all of that right now, extending that look across the building. And then this is the view from kind of that far corner, looking back towards the center of the building. You can see the stone wrapping the corner. You can see the new columns that have the Granulux finish on them, the horizontality nature of the building. And we're not raising the building, although we have a parapet to make sure that we can hide any of the mechanical equipment that we need. And then also the delivery method for the bags to the backplane devices is up and over from the back of the building. So we've taken that into consideration. So you shouldn't see that at all from the front. We're maintaining that look that we have today. let's see what else. Just a flat elevation facade here, and I can zoom in a little bit, so you can see the stone. This is the two new bays that we are expanding the building on the far end. So we're encroaching out into that current rental car facility lot that's there. And then just for reference, where the kind of existing, it's all the existing building, but the core existing building up to that point on the left. And then really quickly, we have our entry and exits, kind of balancing them on each end. This is where the restrooms are on the other side, and I'll show you that in the floor plan because I don't think I pointed that out. And then there is an office space that's currently there, so it's going to maintain that solid facade, and then we're going to have another solid piece along there as well that matches all of that to match. Blend with the existing, make sure that we're have continuity with the existing building, and that we're expanding on that language. And I'll just go back to the plan really quickly. I just wanted to point out where those restrooms were. If you haven't picked up on it, it's just right outside the space on the left-hand side before you enter into the back lane. So we have 3 single occupant, all gender restrooms with the janitor's closet and the plumbing chase as well. And that has a solid back wall to it as well, as I pointed out on the facade.
So we go to the north. We're pushing into the original car space. And how far back are we? Because we're sticking with the front.
Yeah, we're adding a bay to the back as well of the building. So we're expanding in both directions. And I don't know if we had a presentation a couple of months ago, but technically what we're doing is we're going to take down the building and rebuild it in this place, right now where it's at with the same building grid. There's lots of issues about seismic upgrades to the building and making sure that we could expand the building the way the shear walls are right now, and that the building relies on some old walls that are buried there that weren't taken out when it was expanded in the early 90s. And the side wall doesn't allow us to basically expand and open up. So we're just going to take our structure down, rebuild our building, and build it back up in place, which was a much easier thing than updating the building itself and expanding it. Obviously, modernizing the HVAC system, the lighting system, everything associated with the building itself. So we're giving it that long life. So any other questions right now? Let's just make sure. Yeah. So those are all the kind of design sides of it. Before I move on to the
So remind me where we are in the process. Are we proposing that this is the design, or this is just where we are in the design process? There'll be further changes.
Very good point. We are proposing, so it's I'll be very delicate about that. We are proposing that this is the design. We are in architectural terms, we're in the schematic design phase. So we've set our concept. Now we're fleshing out the building itself and making sure we understand everything that needs further development. We're going to step into design and development pretty soon. There's more details we'll figure out, and then construction documents. So in theory, we have set the design, but there are things to develop in the construction document side of it, make sure that we're coordinated with structure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, IT. There's some civil work that needs to be done on the apron side of this and the car rental side of it to drain water away from our building. So all of those things we're in the process of developing, but the design, the look and feel, we feel this is what we would like to propose for the building. That's the option. Because we went through a process with the executive staff, we had multiple options, we narrowed it down, and that's where we are today.
So here, what's the expectation in terms of the commission providing feedback for this, or do you need a decision on this at some point?
This will be the opportunity to provide feedback so that we can incorporate any additional feedback or changes at this point. We would bring this back to the commission for the commission to vote on the final design.
Okay. All right. Everybody know where we are? Okay. Questions or comments, reactions to it?
I'm sure we're getting feedback from the airlines as far as, for example, luggage closet space. I know it sounds very simple, but when the luggage piled up, it needs to be put away for safety. The other one, was that even a question? What about the car rental? The desk for car rental, where will they be relocated?
Sure, they're going to be relocated to the south side of the airport, and I'll go over that in a second, but there's a temporary facility that we're building for them. The ready return and the customer service building will be on the south side of the airport. there'll be a shuttle operation for the temporary operation. So we'll move them out before we start construction. And then so that'll allow us on day one to demolish this building and then rebuild it in place.
I just want to say, yeah, a very calming feeling just watching this presentation. You really, which is something that you want to have experience of their long life, even short life. And
Yeah,
Rosie,
that's, number one on our list. We don't want passengers.
the elements that.
Yeah, very, very calming element,
Yeah.
relate to the nature. That's a huge part of the airport, the indoor, outdoor, all those things that we can make people very calm about their stay here, but excited as well.
And the lower the functionality, which is always.
Yeah, that's the huge point of this is the building is expanded so that we can make sure that people don't back up in there. There's plenty of space. You can get your bags. I did not go into much detail on that.
Yeah, so, probably the area, do we have a plan while this is being done, where people are gonna get their bags?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to all the temporary stuff.
Yeah, so we have ample claim area around each device, and then we've separated that claim area by 9 feet 6 inches roughly. So we have lots of extra space so the passengers can also get to the back of the space if they have a bag issue and need to go to the bag service office in the back itself as well.
Other comments? Okay.
Just wanted to say that, I think you guys have done a fantastic job of really being honored to the original building, at least for my amateur's eye. It feels almost like it could have been there if the original design was larger. I defer to our expert here, maybe on the validity of that opinion, but to me, it feels very, very much honored the original design. So, thank you.
I'll also second that. I think this is a really welcoming environment for someone who's coming to our destination for the first time while honoring the importance of this building and really building onto that, maintaining that as we try and grow and expand it. So I think this is fantastic.
Other comments? I think everyone has a concern about what exists now. I think it's really interesting, the terrazzo floor, the stone. You know, at the beginning of this process, we said we wanted, where it was possible to reflect the original design. And I agree with our commissioners. This is well, so I think the community will like this as well.
There's another one to speak, I can go.
Unless you'd like to make a public comment.
Leave the bathroom, so I'll turn it back to you. We'll come back. Any other comments? I think this is great. I think this is great. And we'll look forward to the next step when we can officially vote for this and then go off to city council.
Okay, you don't see that? The only other thing I'll say is, when I was involved with projects back in 2008 or 9, there was the corner of the SSCP that had kind of a stack stone on it. And they took that stone off and they replaced it with the stone that was more in keeping with the building itself. And I know that they went through an effort to find that quarry and they found that stone. We hope to re-find that stone because it's a very close match to what's on the front of the building. I think they had some kind of connection or key to that. So if anybody was concerned about that, I think we can take care of that issue. But we really want to match and be continuous and respect what's there in the front of the building.
That's great. Okay, move on.
Yeah.
Let's talk bathrooms.
Actually, I'm just going to review the phasing again, just as a reminder about
One second, can we open public comment first
Yeah.
on the one item, and then we'll continue to.
Yeah, that's just. Any public comments? Yeah, that's anyway.
Well, I'm also the founding president of the Positive Modern Committee, and I've been involved with airport issues for years. But what was controversial was when there was talk of pushing the front of the building outward and taking away from the original lines. And anyway, luckily the council did agree to that. But I've been involved in discussions about this expansion, and we've incorporated everything that we wanted. I mean, it looks great. I love the idea you're trying to find the original scene where the box came from, and the matching the base of those columns, those thin columns, and this is great.
This is the first time we've seen it too.
Yeah, I think people can say, but in terms of welcoming and friendly, and it looks like a mid-century environment and all that.
Any other public comments?
Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment? Please raise your virtual Zoom hand. There are no public comments.
Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, I will keep moving. And this part of the presentation is really just a reminder about the phasing, the temporary rental car facility, and the how we're going to phase the project when we're under construction. So this drawing here shows on the right the master plan that's been approved, showing the new concourse on the south here, and then the concourse on the north. I'm showing this one with the current rental car Conrack location. I know there's lots of issues about that, but this is what this drawing is at the moment. And then the left-hand side shows what we have existing today. And I'll just zoom in on that a little bit so you can see that. Backplane is this building right here. We have the rental car ready return lot at the moment, and our TNC pickup is here. And just a reminder of lot A, B, C, and D going across the front, and then our overflow on the side there. Second part of this is this is our end state that we're looking towards. So the baggage claim expansion here in the center. There's going to be a temporary international arrivals facility. We hope to make it part of a permanent international arrivals facility, but we're locating a spot there in the plan and the program right now. That's not being designed today. It's just we're reserving that spot so we don't get in the way of that. And then the Conrack spot as it's considered today. So that's our end state. So always keep the end in mind. Where are we going in this? And then this is where are the opportunities. So backplane is an opportunity. The rack has the space there. We have our TNC lot on the right. Kind of really this slide is just kind of reinterpreting the same slide we had before. But now here's the real important part. So and I'll zoom in here a little bit. Before we start construction on any of the things on the left-hand side here, we'd like to relocate the rental cars out of the current building that they're in right now into a temporary facility and have the ready return lot on this side of the facility. This is only to match which they have today in terms of customer service and the number of cars that are existing. This isn't any kind of long-term expansion, but this meets our need through the planning phases that this building will be under construction. So that's phase one. The second phase is we will, expand the bag claim. At some point in time, the international arrivals facility will come along, and the idea is to use the remainder of that lot that's existing there for the TNC. In construction here, again, this is kind of our last phase. We've got the temporary project going on. We have our bag claim, FIS. Conrack is under construction in this one, and then the final Conrack location there. And what I noticed is not in that drawing. I'm sorry, sir, to address your question about where is the temporary facility for bag claim. So we are proposing in this spot right here. I don't have a drawing of it. I'll be very straightforward about that. But we need approximately this big rectangle at this point in the building here to put up a temporary structure for the temporary bag claim to operate. So while we are in construction with bag claim, that building will be demolished. We're not reusing any part of it on day one. We need to have a full facility in a temporary building for the side of it. And passengers will have to come out and around the building to claim their bags. And then it's open to the apron side, so the bags can come into the back of that building and provide them and into the carousel devices that we have planned for that space itself. So that is my little sleight of hand to show you temporary is going to be right in this spot here during the process that the backplane is under construction. There is, since it's such a large backplane, we do have a phasing idea about completing 2 of the carousels first and then moving over the devices that we used in the temporary facility into the backplane facility as well. So there's a staged reopening of the backplane building itself over time, so it's not all at once. And that will allow us to have some flexibility at the end of the project itself. But the basic idea is we have full capacity in a temporary building outside of the current background location.
So given this size and scope, what would you estimate the construction time to be?
Sure. So, 18 to 24 months is what we're estimating for the construction period on this. And just to let you know, we're in kind of the design phases right now. We're on schedule to complete the design phases the first quarter of next year. Permitting and bidding will occur in the midpoint of next year, and then we'll be ready to construct the project after that point in time. Not sure about the exact date the construction will start, but then from there, we think it's 18 to 24 months for the facility to be built out. Any questions?
Just wondering, when we have the building clubs, temporary facility operating, people exiting.
That's not good.
And people exiting the building to go, it's a rather long walk in the summer especially. Just checking if we'll have plenty for maybe protecting people from the weather for that walk.
Do we include shade structures, for example, in the?
I think that's something that can be included, so I know that was one of Commissioner Feldman's concerns, and we have an eye on it.
I would say shade at bare minimum. I would almost recommend, because we have elderly passengers for whom this is a pretty long walk in heat to even cover it and climate control it.
Good point. Other comments, questions? So the answer is, it's going to the south side. Okay.
Okay. Right. Christine, do I need to stop for any comment on that?
Yes. If there's no other
Same item, correct?
It's going to the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna step into the bathrooms now.
But it's under,
No, they just finished 8A, so we're.
Yeah,
oh, I'm so sorry.
that's okay.
One other quick question. The FIMS, is that the final size?
No, that's not the final size. It's just a placeholder location for it to make sure that it's not in the way of other pieces. And I'll leave it at that.
Temporary.
If we're looking at mid to late 27, according to that construction schedule, does having a temporary unwrapped facility that only meets current demand adequate if we're looking at demand expectations for 2 to 3 years out?
So I think anything that we plan on the south side of the airfield, we would incorporate the next 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 years, just in terms of growth into that planning.
All right.
Let me just open up real quick on the Zoom, Christina, right?
Since we took public comment in the middle of the item, I would recommend opening it up once again, just to be sure. And then we can, if, depending on who wants to speak, then we can proceed to the next item.
Is there anyone who wants to speak about the additional information we shared, where the Conrad is moving and the temporary facility we all did? Anybody on Zoom?
So, well, it was great to see that the temporary location around that served as the permanent location with multi stories. There you have it, that was what I suggested. So it was all.
Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment? Please raise your virtual Zoom hand. No public comments.
Okay, bathrooms, please.
Excellent. Okay. So I'm going to first take you through some of the planning parameters for the bathrooms themselves and our project goals, and then we'll look at every individual restroom. So
Can you make that a little bigger for us? Is it possible for you to expand this?
Sure. Okay, you still can see the image on the side. So project goals for this, number one is to refresh and update our restrooms that we have, to make sure that we add more fixtures, which I think is the really important point on this. We're going to expand the footprint where possible, add convenience features, add all gender restrooms, and incorporate sustainability best practices. So you'll see in the plans that We are looking at a lot of features in those restrooms that we currently see in other airports that have generous space for you to move around, places to put your bag, places to accommodate things when you're in the restroom. And then our real big push is on the all gender restroom side of this. So you'll see the designs where we're incorporating those across the airport, and also nursing rooms and then adult changing rooms as well. So we're incorporating all those features into the project. And let's see here, I just want to run through some of the elements that we're looking at for kind of these new planning standards. So I'll take you through the different component pieces of the restroom. I'm just going to move this over. The entrance to the restroom is an important part of it, so people can identify it, they can find it. Hopefully it's intuitive for passengers, so they're not asking everybody where the restrooms are. Well-placed visible signage is important to this. Environmental graphics that we can use to make sure people understand where they're at, pictograms, and then touchless entries are the real important point on this. We're removing doors to the restrooms themselves so passengers can easily flow in and out of those spaces across the airport. At the sink and vanity area, we had some workshops where we talked about what the look and feel should be like, what the features should be like, and everybody agreed that a hospitality look and feel with design touches is something important here in the desert, and also to support the mid-century modern design. We want to improve the lighting, front-facing lighting at the vanity, warm direct and indirect lighting throughout. We want to make sure that the water, soap, trash, all of those relationships are in close proximity to one another, and you'll see that in our plans. What we are proposing are trough sinks with much like this drawing or this picture here that you see, with the trash in the center on the counter between the various trough sink pieces. So you can easily wash your hands, get a towel, and take care of that on all one spot, so you're not walking across the restroom and taking on things. We want to make sure that we have convenience items such as purse hooks and other things at the vanity steps for children to help out in there, full-length mirrors, and then baby changing tables in each one of the restrooms as well. At the stalls themselves, we are proposing a larger stall, giving more space in the stall itself, and we're proposing full height partitions and doors that go lower to the ground. So there's probably going to be a small gap beneath the door, but we're providing more enclosure and more privacy for people. And in the stall itself, we're providing an area to bring your bag in, and also a shelf behind so you can set any smaller bags down behind the toilet itself. So you have that flexibility, and then hooks on the walls as well behind the doors. Just to give you more privacy and give you a better opportunity to keep an eye on things and take care of your stuff. And then the other part of this is all gender restrooms. So we're maximizing this in the airport in this design. And along with that, accommodating an adult changing room, making sure we have nursing rooms, and incorporating families into those single occupant restrooms as well. So there's lots of flexibility built into this. And now, this is an overview of the restrooms that we are modifying right now as part of this project. All of them are on the air side of the airport here. The two at the Bono Concourse, the one in the central courtyard. You'll see one of the important things that we're doing is this, what we call the outdoor concourse restroom. It was taken out of public use a number of years ago. We're reintroducing it to public use, and then we're making accommodation for the staff use behind it. So that's a huge bonus for this project. And then at the Agua Caliente Cauldron, we're also renovating that restroom as well. And then this is about the fixture count and stall count. So this is really important for everybody to understand. In the big box in the upper right, the takeaway story is that we're adding 24 stalls to this project. And urinals and toilets, we consider stalls, so they're kind of interchangeable when we talk about the number of them, but in the men's restrooms, there is a division that we made between urinals and stalls. But overall, for the number of fixtures across the entire airport, we're increasing it by 24. And I'll show you where that occurs in each one of those restrooms when we go step by step with this. Let's go back here. So we're going to start with the women's room in the Bono Concourse. This is the existing plan that we have today. And This is our future plan. So the big move that we're making here to gain more space is there is that corner in the upper right here. I'll go back to the other plan. There's this kind of outdoor piece. We're going to fill in that piece and add it to the restroom itself. So that's our number one big move. And then we're also just making an arrangement of the restrooms so that they are more in a line. So currently today we have that column, there's a column in the center of this room, and there's a wall in the center of this room. And the toilets are arranged around that, and there's varying space behind it. We're trying to clean that up and make it much more efficient in the layout itself. So there's that whole line of stalls along the one side. Our handicapped and accessible restrooms are on the left-hand side there, and then the sinks are on the opposite wall, and that column becomes freestanding in the center of the space. The other feature for this restroom is that we are adding a nursing room here. So this room doesn't have a toilet in it, but it is a nursing room at the bottom concourse. And you'll see in the overall plan, the other nursing room that we're adding is over at the Agua Caliente hold room. So there's space across the airport. So the total increase in this in the women's room is 3 new stalls here that we're adding in this restroom. This is the other side where the men's room is. Very similar. We're going to fill in this corner here. And a linear layout along those walls. We are including an all-gender restroom up at the bottom concourse. So this is the first all-gender restroom up there that we're introducing, and you'll see the rest of them in the other plans. Within the men's room itself, there's an increase of 2 stalls from what we have today. And I'll just keep moving if anyone else has taught me. This is the concourse, or the courtyard restroom, excuse me. So there are currently 3 men's fixtures and 3 women's fixtures in this restroom. And what we are proposing here is one of the larger changes. We're going to make every restroom in this particular location an all-gender restroom. So everyone would have a sink and a toilet in the particular stall. And we're increasing the number here by 4 because we're going to have 10 total individual restrooms here, basically. So we have the 6 today, we're adding 4 new ones, but they're all gender, so they're flexible. Anyone can use any one of these restrooms. We're expanding this building. We're going to keep the apron side where it's at. We're going to expand it towards the courtyard side. And we'll probably have to make some modifications to the landscape on the opposite side so that the passenger flow in that area can still continue as it is today. So we're going to make that accommodation because we are pushing the building out a little further. Just want you to be aware of that. The next one is the restroom. We call it the outdoor concourse restroom on that corridor that takes you to the Agua Caliente hold room. So today it's configured with just a nursing room, and then the rest of the building is for on the air side for the staff themselves. We're going to change this one radically and expand this building by adding a men's room, a women's room, and then an all-gender restroom, and then our adult changing room is going to go here in the upper right. And then we're putting in 2 all-gender restrooms for staff on the back side that's accessible for them. So this is one of the big radical changes that we're making by adding all of this. Is we're going to gain a lot of capacity. Today, we don't have any stalls there for the public. So we're having an add of 12 stalls in this location for the public. And that doesn't count the 2 stalls in the back for staff. So that's above and beyond. That's a separate count. And then moving on to the Agua Caliente hold room, another large change for this building. We're keeping the footprint from this one, but we're going to make a radical change here. We're keeping the same number. We're increasing, I think, the women's room by 1 stall in this location. There's a net increase of 3 stalls because of the all-gender restrooms. And then we're keeping the men's room. It's actually getting, I think, 1 extra stall through a urinal. But the big bonus is the 2 all-gender restrooms and the nursing room here, while increasing the individual rooms themselves with a much more simplified layout as well. So that is the restrooms themselves. I just back to the timeline. So we talked about the timeline for the backlink. On the restrooms, we are in what we call the basis of design phase of this project. So we're developing the criteria, understanding where we're going to make the expansion throughout the airport. getting all of that documentation together before we step into schematic design and design development. We're going to complete our basis of design by August, and then we'll step forward into the regular design phases, finish that mid-2025, and then construction is TBD, so we don't have that number at the moment. And I'll just go back to any one of these slides. The one thing that we haven't done so far, this is a planning study. We've identified the kinds of features, but we haven't stepped into the look and feel for this yet. So materials and other things are not part of this right now. That'll be a design phase when we get through with the basis of design.
Questions? Comments? Quick question, with all the additional all gender, could one safely send a child to one of these all gender restrooms? Is that something we need to be concerned about?
Well, there's single occupant restrooms as well. I wouldn't make a judgment call for a parent or someone else, but there's no other access to these rooms. It's one person at a time. I think it's common sense, at that point.
Other
I have
comments?
my hand raised.
Say it again, David.
When somebody's ready, I have my hand raised.
Go for it.
Okay, so I know you just said these are purely drawings, so it's a good time to get ahead of the curve here. I've probably been in a couple of dozen airports over the last 12 months, and of the renovated bathrooms I've been in, at least half of them, the technology fails. Either the water, you have to swipe your hands 50 different ways in order to get the water to come out. The most common thing is there's no soap in the soap dispensers, which are beautiful, and you wave your finger and nothing happens. How are we going to prevent that from happening? So we spend all this money making beautiful bathrooms like all the rest of the airports around the world do, and have, these super fancy technology solutions for water and soap that fail. And the degree to which they fail globally is shocking.
So I think our first step, and we've done this already in our workshops, is to incorporate the voice from the operations side of the airport, to make sure that people who maintain the restrooms understand what we're putting into the restrooms, and that they buy into the parts and pieces that we're proposing that they get installed. So yes, the soap dispensers, we want to make sure that they understand how they get refilled, and that they can do that easily, and that they buy into that option, and that they're providing the supply for it. Paper towel dispensers, same thing. We want to make sure they understand what we're putting in, and that they buy into the option that we're providing. The water and maintenance side of it, again, the maintenance folks were in our workshop. They gave us a lot of feedback about what's not working and what they'd like to see. So that's kind of step one. Steps 2 and 3 are developing protocols and working with staff to make sure that they maintain that and provide the service that the passengers need. Yeah, so it's stepping through it. It's number one for us on our side of it is making sure their voice is included in the process, which is extremely important, because I think we've all seen projects where maybe the design team selected a very fancy paper towel dispenser or soap dispensers. This is the one you commonly see. We'd like to have something discreet on the counter there that works, and then some other company comes along and puts a double stick tape soap dispenser on the wall because that's the contract that the maintenance people bought. We don't want that to happen. So that's the part about including the voice up front.
Okay, one other question for Harry. Have we consulted sustainability? Because a lot of this stuff is tied into sustainability, including paper towels, which I'm sure sustainability is not fond of, but all of this stuff is sustainability related. Are they involved?
Sustainability is aware this project is happening, and as we get further into design, we'll definitely plug them in more. But also, I don't know if you remember this, but we added a sustainability specialist to our staff, and we're actually recruiting for that position now, or will be here soon. So that person will be laser focused on some of these issues.
Thank you.
Other comments, Scott?
I have one thing, I think I touched on this maybe on the workshop that I was attending, but, just when we have the like soap and air and water, that they're all labeled, because some places don't have them in the most intuitive way out, and people have guessing which is which.
This is nice.
Yeah, so we'll run through those options with staff and others, and, just the current trend is that soap, water, and the dryer is all right in the sink itself. You put your hand into the dryer and it dries it there, but there's other options where it's to the side, and then paper towels. I would suggest we have both, because a lot of people have preferences there and you can't make everyone happy. So we would probably do a combination.
One last comment, I'm impressed that you guys managed to squeeze it all in, because that was my biggest concern at the workshop, was where it was all going to fit, so kudos.
I think an increase of 24 stalls across would be much appreciated. It's great.
With depreciation and phasing is obviously on down the road, but would we expect that the number of available fixtures would be throughout construction, at least roughly what we have now, or will there be times when it would be lower during that era?
Sure. So our starting point is to maintain what we have today. And you know how critical that is during construction through temporary facilities. And we're going to have to phase these restrooms across the areas and put in temporary facilities to meet that need. Yes. Thank you.
Is there anything in the room that wishes to make a public comment?
Which way do the stall doors swing in the ladies' room?
Well,
Many airports, they swing in and you're stuck. We stuck between the remote and your suitcase, trying to climb over the suitcase. Yeah.
sure.
Can you announce your name? Oh, Mary Ann Doreen, thank you.
Okay. Depends on the type of stall. If you look at our plan here in this women's room, the accessible and ambulatory swing out, and then the regular stalls swing in. So we have the option within the restroom for both types. And let me just make sure that that's true across all of our restrooms. Our all gender restrooms swing in, but there is a range of the size of rooms, and those are bigger rooms overall, so that shouldn't be that big of a problem. And let's look at the Bono concourse for the women's room. So they all swing out here, and I think they swing in that last one because of space constraints, but in this one, all of the doors are planned to swing out in the space. But it's a very good point, and it's another sort of preference and debatable point that comes up quite a bit. So thank you for that feedback.
Anybody online?
If there's anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment, please raise your virtual Zoom hand. No.
Commissioner Feldman, you have a question?
Feldman?
If not, take your hand down. All right, let's move on. 8C, the FIS, lots of interest in this.
All right, so FIS study for background for the commission. We have these grand ideas about building a facility for the FIS, but the other part of that challenge is actually getting Customs and Border Protection to sign off on the resources and the manpower for it. And so part of what we've tasked our consultants to do is take a look at that, not only from a feasibility perspective, is it reasonable that we can get flights here from international destinations and what that looks like, but also a strategy for how we get the resources here to accommodate that. So InterVistas has been tasked with that. Josh Cohn will walk us through the work they've been doing over the year. We hired Josh and his team just after we started the master plan last year. And they've been working since then. So with that, I will turn it over to him.
Thanks, Harry, and it's great to be here. It's a little hard to follow a bunch of pretty pictures and discussion on restrooms, so I feel like for my first appearance here, this is going to be a tough act to follow. So I want to talk a little bit. We have a couple of slides just kind of talking about the FIS feasibility project. It was two phases. The first phase, which was done under the guise of the Visit Greater Palm Springs organization, was to do some case study work, looking at a couple of airports of similar size in terms of their international presence, and just the number of passengers. And so we went through that case study process in the early part of 2023, looked at some of those airports, provided our report to Visit Greater Palm Springs and to the airport, which then led us into this second phase, which was really to understand the feasibility of an FIS here at the airport. That feasibility takes on a number of different forms, and we'll touch on a couple of them today, the more interesting ones, I think. One is just the market analysis, like what is the appetite and the demand for potential international service here. There's an environmental compliance piece, which is currently being done, and that's just in partnership with the master plan, just making sure that the airport is set up in case there's any environmental work to be done as part of this. There's the economic impact piece, so the GDP and economic growth components. There's obviously the size. I know a question was asked during Neil's presentation kind of about the size of the FIS. Making sure that the airport facilities itself can accommodate. So does the runway still work? Do the taxiways still work? We're getting into now a little bit of a look on operating costs. And then Harry mentioned maybe the elephant in the room, and that's the staffing considerations and just some of the challenges working with CBP and the way the organization is right now in terms of obtaining the staff to actually operate this facility.
For the sake of the audience, the time CD.
Oh, yeah, sorry, no worries. So the FIS is Federal Inspection Station. The CBP is U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So they're the organization that would staff this facility. And in fact, there is one agent here to serve the general aviation community just out the building here. So
we're talking about staffing considerations. It's not our airports.
Correct.
We get the FIS.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you get the U.S. Customs and Border Protection staff here when you have a flight in order to process those passengers? So a little bit on the market analysis itself. There's some text and some graphics, but again, not quite as pretty pictures here. So I'm going to jump to the answer and then just show you a little bit about kind of how we got there. In terms of the market opportunity that we've evaluated, there's a fair amount of demand built up to accommodate some number of flights to and from Mexico, both the leisure and the business destinations. So that could be Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Mexico City, airports like that. And then we also noticed there are a significant number of seats, folks looking to come to and from Europe, especially during the peak winter season here, but even in the summer season, kind of flipping it, but with locals leaving as well. In order to get there was a lot of work to go into that. We had access to cell phone data in and around a 90-mile radius of here to kind of figure out where people were coming and going. And that's really to understand the leakage. You have people that live in this community that might drive, for example, to LAX to get on an international flight. But you also, on the converse, have people coming from, Kansas that might be flying into LAX and driving to Palm Springs. And so we want to look at both ends of that equation to figure out what the actual latent pent-up demand is for international travel in this market. A couple of just the unique items here. So given your driving distance to Tijuana or even to San Diego, given some of the limited options, there actually is a fair amount of leakage to across the border, either through the cross-border express or just into Tijuana itself for passengers looking to travel to and from Mexico. We talked about the European piece. A lot of that just gravitates toward LAX given the sheer number of flight options. There's demand in Canada. You have a fair amount of service to and from Canada today. The assumption going forward is a lot of that will remain pre-clearance, which means those passengers, like in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, will enter the U.S. in Canada, and so they look like a domestic passenger when they're here. And then Asia in itself is a bit heavily fragmented right now, and there's not a ton of demand in an individual market, and so probably not an area that we would look too far into. Just to kind of show some of the numbers behind that. So again, the market demand is a combination of what's reported, so the passengers that are actually going from here to one of those destinations or back, and then the passengers that might be doing that from another market. And so that's in that first bar graph there to Mexico, there's about 675 what we call PDUs. Those are passengers per day each way. So a passenger either going to or from the market, and that seems to be the biggest market capture area in terms of where an FIS could potentially serve passengers. And that follows by Europe, primarily the United Kingdom, London in particular, and Germany. And so those are the two that we've focused on in this analysis. And then you can see in the pie graph on the right there, perhaps not a surprise, but of the passengers leaking out of this market, almost 8 in 10 of them are leaking to LAX, and then a smaller share to Ontario, Tijuana, again, as we talked about, some of the pricing driving people to the cross-border express, and then much smaller markets to San Diego, even driving to Las Vegas from here. So that's sort of what we're looking at in terms of trying to pull back some of that demand into this market. Any questions about just the market demand or leakage before I kind of jump into some of the other highlights? All right. We looked at economic impact as well. And economic impact is a combination of both impacts and how it's categorized. So there are the impacts at the airport itself. So everything that's needed to accommodate those airplanes, those passengers, their bags, things like that. And our economic analysis team has years of sort of looking at that. And so we have a methodology in place to evaluate that. There's the visitor spending. So any of those non-local visitors that are coming into the market, what they spend on accommodations and food and retail, ground transportation, and things like that. And there are some metrics within the state on long-term spend rates that we can use for the different markets. And then there's the multiplier effect of just that economic impact spreading through the community. And again, California has a model for measuring those. And then in terms of just how we categorize that, there's obviously the direct spending. So any passenger in this building and any visitor that spends money in the community, that's a direct impact. There are the indirect, so everything to support that. So all of the business to ship, soda and food and beverages to the airport to then be vended to consumers, the supplies and other things for hotels, all of that is indirect. And then induced, which is once you hire those workers to work in your community, what economic benefit do they bring by spending that money in your community? So there's a lot of numbers here. I think I probably should have simplified this, but really the point is when you look at the incremental add, so those are new visitors to the Palm Springs area that wouldn't have ordinarily come because the service didn't exist. You're looking on the order of about 139 million in GDP and a combined job impact of both direct, indirect, and induced of about 800 positions. When you look at kind of the total economic impact of including the passengers that were going to come anyway, I think that number is closer to 300 million. So it's a sizable amount. And again, one piece that then resonates through the community in terms of finding the benefits. A little bit on the mechanics of this. So the question was asked about the program requirements. So when we look at that induced demand, we're looking on the order of about probably 320 passengers during the peak period. That's the equivalent of maybe 2 narrow body single aisle airplanes like a 737 or an Airbus A320, or potentially one larger wide body aircraft like a Boeing 787 that might come from Europe. And so that's our starting point in terms of sizing the facility. The US CBP has a manual called the Airport Technical Design Standards. In terms of pretty pictures, that's what it looks like. It's updated about every 5 years, and it's a fairly rigid document, but it does give you some pretty good guidance in terms of the categories of the space that you need to provide and what their recommendation is for that space. And when you take 400 passengers an hour and you run it through their calculations, you get an area of about 30,000 square feet. And so as a starting point, that's kind of the number that we're looking at for either a temporary or a permanent facility. Through our experience, negotiations with CBP will bring that number down. There is some give and take that can occur when it comes to things like space for canines or how many jail cells do you need given the security risk in this market, things like that. And I think that compares relatively well. When I started this and talked about the case studies, 2 of those case studies were Kona on the Big Island and Stewart, which is the 4th Port Authority airport just up the Hudson River in New York. And their FISs, which have similar processing capacities, were between 20 and 32,000. So we're in the ballpark here as a starting point. To the staffing question, working with our former CBP officer who's on our team, you're probably looking at needing 6 staff, hopefully in one shift so that you can get all the flights done in a one shift period. There is the one FTE that's currently assigned. One of the things we're working with Harry and team on is that staffing strategy. As many of you are probably aware, staffing related to the federal government is always a challenge, and it's especially a challenge with CBP. Some of that is complicated by the fact that Ontario just received several new CBP officers, and all being in the part of the LA region, the appetite for new staff. So we've worked on outlining a strategy with Harry that we're going through in terms of kind of here are some steps in terms of engagement with the local CBP facility staff, potentially through local representation, sort of building that story so that we can get that conversation started. It may be the longest lead time in all of this is just getting the staff that you need to support the facility. The other thing we checked, as I mentioned, is sort of the capabilities of everything. We looked at whether the airfield can actually accommodate a critical long-haul aircraft like the Boeing 787, and potentially with weight restrictions in the summer due to the heat, but the airfield is set up to be able to accommodate those aircraft types if an airline chooses to operate something like a 787 or a larger wide-body aircraft. The last thing on the FIS piece is, and it sort of ties into what Neil was mentioning earlier, we started to look at some alternative locations as part of this. Those included everything from repurposing the USO hangar to potentially reusing the tent site for where the baggage claim temporary facility will be, to trying to embed it into part of the future concourse, to even looking at the opportunity on the other side of the Agua Caliente concourse behind the baggage makeup facility to see if we could squeeze it in there. A lot of this will, I think, take on forms as we move through the master plan and these other projects to figure out how we work it all together. But I think there are options on the table that are being evaluated, and it just has to kind of be fit in with the other projects that the airport is undertaking. I think that's my last slide on the FIS piece before we talk about the strategic plan.
Questions on this?
Yeah, I don't remember the names of the designations, but what type of airport was it we get started?
Yeah.
We wouldn't be for immigration purposes an international airport. It's
correct. This is a user, great question. This is a user fee airport. And what that means is the airport or the city has to pay for all of CBP's staff and facilities. When you get to an international designation, which is what Ontario just became, then CBP reimburses itself for those. And so you are in the position of having to then fund those officers and the technology and other things that they need in this facility, which is what occurs today with the one CBP officer for any general aviation flights that are being processed.
One more question, ma'am. There are an awful lot of folks, especially further down the desert, who are really accustomed, I get the number was 9%, to hopping on the bus and going to Tijuana. Obviously, because the fares are cheaper. Cali or Tijuana, and they go and they visit family in Mexico. And I know that Fresno has more traffic, like on Bolaris and Aguetata or Mexico, and certainly going to Mexico is different from the border. Do we have any thought about how much of that 9% we might be able to pull back so that families down the desert might say, you know what, we'll fly out of Palm Springs instead of crossing the border?
I don't have the exact figures, but it is a function again of cost and between the ticket price and the total travel time. But Fresno is a great example of having significant service by Volaris, or originally Aeromexico, but then but Volaris now to support that. And so, but they also, again, don't have as many alternatives in terms of the drive distance. So I think the opportunity is there, but some of it will come down to, I think, pricing and frequency and time and kind of all of that in terms of attracting a carrier that could do that.
But then you travel on the Tijuana.
Well, it really is. I mean, I hear so many people finding the convenience, even if you have to pay a high fee for parking, pay to, use the facility, which is a very nice facility. And they're not even going to Tijuana.
Right, they're just using the
They're
CBX.
just using TBX to land in the Tijuana airport. But there's a cost associated.
There's a
And
cost.
the traffic,
Yes,
3.5 hours really.
on a good, yeah, but there's a lot of variability in that equation versus being able to just come up here and, yeah.
So the litage,
A lot of folks, other people here go to credit card.
yeah.
And tickets on American, $4.90, $6.20. Direct tickets, when you cross the border, we want $200. So it is a price thing, to your point. And it is interesting to people who will say, it's worth it to drive to San Diego, walk across the border for $200, and say that for $200, $300, $400 you pay, you both food, United or American or Alaska or someone else. But it's the other cost and the time. So we introduced a bunch of flights from Mexico. It'd be very interesting to see price-wise, you know, where those airlines land price-wise relative to what's happening in Tijuana, because it is pulling some folks out here. Other comments?
Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment? Could you use your Zoom hand? No public comment.
Anybody here
Would you like to make public comment?
about this issue? How fast?
Good question. So, maybe the easiest question is in terms of the study itself, we have a couple of those last pieces to put in, but we're hoping to finalize and publish that for the airport here in the next couple of weeks. Again, the long lead time may be staffing, and we have getting some conversations set up for our staff to kind of talk through the outline that we've put together on that, and then just obviously building the structure, building the facility, I think will be a component of just how it fits in with the other projects going on, because if it is in one of these locations near the future bag claim site, there are those enabling projects of getting the rental cars out of there. So there's a little bit of lead time on that, but again, I think the longest one will be the conversations about staff. So I can't commit to a time, but I think that's in terms of the things I would be worried about, I think staffing is the one that will probably be the one that is hardest to solve for, versus the airlines and the building.
In your view, how difficult would it be to convince Customs and Border Protection to open a station? I mean, other than the one officer to create a station. Is that an issue?
It's an issue, I think, just because of the staffing shortage that CBP is experiencing. I think if this was normal times and, again, because they're not paying for it in a sense, it's just, can we get the people, get between what's going on at the southern border and just the overall staffing shortages? It's finding the highest and best use of their staff. And so there are other things they're worried about. And so I think just if there's a strong enough case to be built and potentially some political pressure and support, that those may change the story. But I think that is just what we've been hearing from both our CBP colleagues and just across other airports, is that staffing is really the struggle.
My last question.
Yeah, no worries.
Would this station be considered part of the LA district or the San Diego district?
The LA district.
Is there any flexibility on that?
I don't believe that's something we can influence.
Do you want to give any color commentary about the importance of this to Greater Palm Springs?
Well, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, and we do know, and we've had conversations over the years with international carriers who would come here, and we know that, especially as you mentioned from the UK in particular. And I guess my question is, is it a chicken or egg scenario? How likely are airlines to commit to it without the staffing, and how much is CBP willing to put resources without an airline's commitment, right? And it's one big mixing bowl that you have to get like the sun, moon, stars to align to make that happen. But we know that we can confidently fill an airplane from Europe every day. Here, there is demand. We see it and hear it all the time.
Great. Before we move on to strategic business plan, any other comments or questions from anybody here or online? We're good. This is exciting, and obviously it's a priority, certainly to the Convention Bureau, and I think our mantra is the sooner the better.
Yeah.
So thank you for the presentation.
Of course.
All right, strategic business plan.
I will keep going then. So this one, I don't have as much to say because we are really just getting started, but one of the other tasks we're working on with the airport is the implementation of the strategic business plan. And so this, again, just getting started. And we know that some work has been put into developing a set of a set of vision, missions, and values. And I think our purview will be to find the implementable and measurable goal items that you can use to then evaluate your success in implementing those concepts. There will be a lot of consultation and engagement on this, which will start with the leadership team at the airport, a staff survey that would go out to airport employees, interviews with other key stakeholders. We're working on kind of what that list looks like with our the gentleman who's leading this effort on our team, but it would likely include the tourism groups, potentially other key business groups, the regional community organizations, things like that. And then where the commission will come in is we're working on a strategy session, I believe, for September is kind of what we're currently thinking to be determined, but that would be an opportunity to really dive in with you all on your inputs to kind of what those implementable items are to measure the success of the vision, mission, and values. We had our kickoff. We're going to get into the stakeholder engagement piece here soon. And then September, the strategy session with the goal of having that fully developed plan in December for your sort of ratification approval and then implementation from there.
So 2 questions.
Yeah.
What's the difference between this and a long range plan? And how much of for those of you who know, September will be our strategic planning meeting. Now, this will become part of that agenda as well. How much a part of that agenda do you anticipate it to be? So the difference between these two initiatives and then the scope of what you expect in terms of September.
I don't know if I can speak to how it relates to the overall. I'm not sure.
Just in terms of distinction, when we're talking about the strategic business plan, we're talking about how to get to where we want to go. When we're talking about the master plan, it's more focused on the projects themselves, the capital program as a whole, and how we make sure to get those problems solved, maybe work with FAA on the funding piece of that and things like that. Strategic business planning is more about the overall organization, how we execute some of these things, what the organization should look like in the future, what areas, what verticals we should focus on, things like that. Got it.
Yeah, it's setting those stretch goals and achievable targets. I'm trying to give a good example, like, by 2029, we will have cut X% of our carbon emissions. Like, you come up with the goals to then execute. I wasn't sure, so the master plan's the other thing we're talking about. I misunderstood there. Yeah, so this is about, the organization itself and not about the facilities.
Comments or questions? And we'll jump into this in September. Is there anyone who has any comments about this? On Zoom, we're in the room.
From the public?
Seeing none?
No.
All right. 80. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Arts program, Victoria. When will we see art?
Well, one thing we are actually on a little bit of a holdup. We still need the agreement to be executed with the individual artists. So that is something that the Economic Development Department is working with the artists to get the mural here. We at the airport have provided guidance on what is needed in order for them to get into the airport and to start doing their work here. So as soon as that contract gets executed, then we're able to get them into the airport. So hopefully over the summer, we can see something with our mural that we have planned. As far as the art sculptures that the commission made a vote on a couple of commission meetings ago, we are working with the art commission or Gary Armstrong to kind of figure out if there's some other art pieces that can come into the airport and that can be on a rotating basis. So we were kind of wanting to open it up to the commission for discussion to see if they thought of any other, practices so that we can get an arts program really moving here at the airport. So I'm going to get your ideas on that. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit last time, but we do also have to incorporate maybe the Arts Commission to, or maybe some people from the Arts Commission so that we can get their feedback on it. So just wanted to get everybody's feedback on what you think we could look, that program would look like for the airport.
Ideas or comments?
Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment?
I have a comment. What would we have to do, take the wall downstairs across from Clear and make that a rotating art exhibit and work with artists, local artists to rotate art in that spot? Maybe there's another spot, somebody else has another big blank wall, they're all over here. To just temporarily or test or pilot a rotating art piece where we invite people, local artists to come in and just put them up for 3 months at a time. So it doesn't have to go to hire us for post approval, just to bring some art into the lobby. What would have to happen to do that?
Maybe some type of committee or something that can help the airport with that. I think probably one of the biggest things is staff time to get an art program developed. That probably would take an individual to work on that and to make sure that keeps going. But maybe if it's something that maybe the commission would be interested in assisting us with and, you know, kind of heading that project so that we can get that going. So if we had anybody that was interested in participating in that and maybe even starting up with, maybe like a subcommittee or a working group or something like that so that we can, kind of just get that kind of going, seeing what that looks like and then seeing, you know, seeing how they would go out to the community and work with artists, right? Rather than the airport being the ones initiating that, so.
There are several curators in Palm Springs who have expressed interest in helping us with this. And I hear what you're saying, someone's got to do it. And I know the Art Commission, based on their presentation last night, is doing lots and lots of stuff. And we're still waiting for our 2 deliverables from the Arts Commission. So, David, I'm going to suggest that the Operations Committee, where the art discussions exist now, that's where it is in David's subcommittee and operations. Maybe chat with the Operations Committee and see if we can build a subcommittee out of there. And see if we can scope out the idea to staff for any guidance in terms of, you know, who has to bless any of this and see if we can make a difference. Space in the walls exists and it doesn't have to be gone with the wind, but I think there are locals who are here who can help us to get something going while we're waiting for the bigger installations. So I'm going to ask Commissioner Fellon just to add that to operations and then we'll put together a subcommittee to do that.
Thank you.
Now on the statues, I know there was a comment in the presentation last night. A lot of these have to be sent away to be repaired. Is that part of the process and timing?
It is, yes, and it was even, you know, recommendation from Commissioner Armstrong from the Arts Commission that, you know, we have these rotating pieces, they rotate out every 12 to 18 months, and that would be something that would be in their, you know, their wheelhouse to kind of get going and making sure that that happens.
Any comments from commissioners or thoughts? And as we look at commission or subcommittee assignments next month, remind me and we'll make sure that this is plugged into whoever lands on operations for.
Question, you said 12 months. Is that too long? Where we had situation where they needed to be done right now? Is 12 months enough? Is it too much?
I don't know, that's a good question. Good question.
I have that answer. We need to move faster. I think we need to move faster. And I know that there's a lot of, you know, taking the mural through the whole process and getting city council to approve it and fund it. I mean, there's 1,000 steps here. And I respect that process. There's a lot of input at the airport, for the Arts Commission to do that. What I'm looking for is something that can be done in 2 months. And just get something in there. It would not be permanent, they could rotate. Would have any type of approval perhaps inside staff and commission. And a space that we can just start pulling everything here while these big installations are being either prepared, funded, approved, whatever. What we learned from the mural is it's over a year. It takes a lot of time to get that done. And the Art Commission is doing a lot of other stuff besides this. Now, you heard Gary's presentation last night, very committed to bringing it to the airport. But we're over a year. And so if there were a way we could do something that could move faster and give us some more flexibility while we're waiting for these big installations. So, yes. Yes. Any other comment from the public about this or from any other commissioners? Anybody on Zoom?
Please announce your name, please.
My name is Jack Childs, and I just happen to be a member of the community, but knowing multiple artists, how the commission member goes to one of the artists that actually does murals, but also has freestanding art. I know one specifically, Marconi Art, and he's world renowned and has had many pieces all over the world, but he does freestanding art and murals. There are others like that right in the Palm Coast community that might be able to provide us something and may want to give something to the community.
Amen. Lots of artists. Point well taken. And that's part of, I think, the vision, what we're trying to talk through here. Okay, let's move on. We're all set? Our concessions update. Some really interesting stuff has been, is made progress. Jeremy?
Sure, so I think we have, we have the concession schedule, and we also have the ad hoc design review committee, so I don't know if we want to try to merge those two together.
Let's merge them.
If you want to come there, yeah.
Sure. Tanya, can you promote me as panelist, please?
Oh, yeah.
For those, the ad hoc committee for in-person concessions is a subgroup of the commission. Contracts were awarded to 2 different companies for retail and for food and beverage last year. They're in the middle of redoing all of these concessions. And this subcommittee looks at incremental changes, gives input on design, input on things like menus, whatever that are coming forward in this. So we're going to talk, Jeremy handles the schedule of construction, all of that, and then Victoria handles the ad hoc committee. Who's going first?
We're going to contact the story, get a story going.
So we just wanted to show the commission, what it's been looking like thus far. So, and this will kind of give you an idea of like maybe why some of the schedule has pushed a little bit and just show you the progress that has been made with all the different concession spaces. So what you see here is Cactus to Clouds. This is in April. So this is in the center of the Bono terminal. So you'll see that they're, the contractors are getting in there and they're cutting into the concrete and they're adding some infrastructure inside of there and some wood. Then you'll see in May that they start adding, some more material in there. They remove the wood and they start adding the actual structure in the center of the space there. Then in June, you see that the floors are all nice and covered up, and you start seeing like the actual structure of the bar coming into the space there. So we're making progress. Jeremy will go over the schedule of the anticipated opening date, but there's definitely been a lot of progress over the last 3 months. The Las Consuelas Coachella Valley Coffee, you'll see in April. I mean, we're, opening up walls, opening up the ground, adding conduit piping inside of the ground there and on the walls. And then in May, you start seeing more tear down and, capping of some of the existing infrastructure that's there. And then just making sure that they're adding all the steel framing to start framing it out for the upcoming space that's supposed to be there. And then in June, you'll see that, the walls are starting to go up. You're starting to see drywall some of the areas. And there's just, there's contractors are constantly there and they're constantly doing work to make sure that this space gets open in the time that it's scheduled to be open. In motion is upstairs in the Bono. If you were going towards the center of the Bono, it is the one on the right hand side, so opposite of Hey Joshua. You see that they're just doing some framing in there in May, but then in June you start seeing some of the the drywalling going up, and actually very soon you're going to see, maybe at the next commission meeting, you'll see some more of the color that's going in there for the space. Uptown Essentials is in the Agua Caliente Concourse. That is, the other spot that is a retail location that's just going through, cutting into the ground, adding walls, removing walls, just kind of making the layout of the space, the new layout for Uptown Essential. So there's just a lot of progress that's happening with all of our concessions right now, and Jeremy can go over the schedule for some of these that are expected to open up soon.
Do you have the renderings for the new space?
I do actually. Do you want me to show that?
Yes.
Okay.
Good to see these very big decisions.
I can just go through the schedule where it should be in your packets. But really the next location that's gonna open here in the next hopefully 3 to 4 weeks will be In Motion. Which Victoria mentioned on the Bono Concourse. And then the next 2 food and beverage locations will be Cactus the Cloud, the bar area, and then Las Casuelas and Coachella Valley Coffee, which will be sometime around the mid-August timeframe. So everything else seems to be pretty smooth and kind of running. And as you can see in a lot of the pictures, there's a lot going on. So we have construction in multiple sections of the terminal.
We at the ad hoc, did Mary done? Yep. Okay, sorry. So at the ad hoc committee meeting, we had some really good news. The commission helped us out tremendously with a bunch of feedback, and they received this feedback from the community that's traveling through Palm Springs at all times. So, we went through our menus, we discussed all the details of our menus, and even adding in different drinks that cater to the Palm Springs, local feel and touch of Palm Springs. So over the last 6 to 8 months, we literally deep dived into quite a few things, including revamping one of the locations that we have. Currently it's called Half Moon Empanadas, and it's actually one of our temporary locations. It was provided by Charities to eliminate some of that long line congestion that happens at Santa Rosa Kitchen. And so they put that out here. You'll see it in the center concourse. But what the plan was for it to actually be relocated up to the Bono concourse on the left-hand side, like the north part of the concourse. But we heard feedback from the community and from the commission, and we decided to make some different offerings there that were more of a healthier offering. And we also wanted to cater it to be more like Palm Springs local. So we got some really good feedback from our commissioners, and they provided 2 options. So it was either Movie Colony Canteen or Movie Colony Market. And ultimately, it was decided that we were going to move forward with Movie Colony Canteen. So that is going to be the new name of the location. It is going to be this look and feel. It's going to actually showcase some of the local Palm Springs movie stars that were here back in, I think, like the 50s or the 60s. So you'll see those pictures there updated with some of the, the actual local movie stars that were here in this Palm Springs area. The color is going to change a little bit. So rather than having this pink around the rim of it, it's actually going to be green. So it's similar to this. this color here. So, I mean, you see the difference of the tickets in the background. We decided to just take the color here of the green and then just put it on the other rendering there. So that's gonna be what's gonna be located up in the Bono, serving fresh food that is gonna be made out of our commissary kitchen that's currently being built downstairs.
So we've gone from empanadas to fresh salads, freshly made sandwiches, other snacks that you can take with you, but to be one place where you can get healthy stuff. And the Movie Colony Canteen. Canteen thing, Movie Colony, obviously one of our famous neighborhoods here is over by Palm Springs. The canteen was really the concept ripped off from the Beverly Hills Hotel. If you've ever been there, they have this really interesting breakfast counter called the Canteen. We thought it had some connection to Hollywood and to movies, therefore the Canteen. And all the pictures will be famous Palm Springs movie folks who have lived in Palm Springs. So from Sinatra to others to Leo DiCaprio, those are the pictures that will be reflected in the design of this. Kevin and Todd, do you want to jump in because I have one other conclusion, but do you have other comments? These, Kevin, Todd, David are on the subcommittee. Any comments on what happened at our last meeting?
And just to point out, the plan is for a date shake machine as well.
Date shakes. Any other comments?
No, you know, I think it was a great process. None of us were really happy with Akron and Bananas, and I think we've come to a really great conclusion that all our guests through the airport, as well as staff and anybody passing through, will enjoy all the options. So we're very excited with this.
We've come a long way. Some of the original menus were not as healthy as we had hoped. They've been improved dramatically. There's a misunderstanding about Cactus in the Clouds, the bar at the top of the Bono piece. They would have pre-mixed cocktails. We pushed on that, clarified, confirmed. There'll actually be real bartenders serving people up there. 75 seats. I think it's gonna be very cool. That opens at the end of August, called Cactus in the Clouds, which again reflects that whole famous trail thing. People go from the bottom and back of the museum all the way to the tram. It's called Cactus in the Clouds. That's the hook there. I think the only comment I make is at every one of our meetings, our dates push out. And it's been frustrating, and now we've hammered Jeremy about why is this taking so long. The one thing that became clear, and actually talking to the folks from the Marshall Group Perry's, is, and it's something we can think about when we talk about this building moving forward, this building moving forward. I mean, they had it all the time. You know, the water systems are old, their conditioning systems are old, there's asbestos all over the place. So this has been a lot more complicated than anybody had hoped or imagined. So we're gonna stop beating up Jeremy. And we appreciate what's been happening here, how complicated it is. And but the good news is the openness between the partners has been great. And they're doing great stuff on the retail side. The Palm Springs products that we insisted on, the Palm Springs products, are flying off the shelf. They're doing very, very well. Products that are made or represented by local folks here. So good news on that. And I think we just need to be more patient. And I think that by January or early first quarter, when these last two things are done, I think people are going to be pretty impressed with where we've landed. But we understand, we feel your pain. But that's it, no more discussions. Is there any other questions or commissioners, anybody here in the room or anybody out? Please, Jim.
Cactus and clouds.
Cactus to the clouds.
Cactus to Club.
You have the thing at the top, any problems with birds?
I don't really know. I don't think so. I'm sure Harry's looked at that.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure.
I think there's another roof structure.
There's gonna be an awning over it.
Yeah, there's
It'll
an
be
awning, also another awning.
They turn somehow.
I was thinking, because there's a bar, and I was just wondering if there's anything that prevents the birds from being.
There is gonna be a canopy, so there isn't nothing that's gonna prevent the birds, but there will be another canopy underneath the existing canopies that are there, and it's actually gonna showcase, actually, maybe I can show it for everybody. Let me like that. Let me get that really quickly. And I can show you. But there will be a canopy there. I'm not saying though that the birds will not fly over and stop by.
No, I know, but will they be on top of there, dropping on the bar?
That's a good question. We'll ask. That's a really good question. I understand it.
There are some inexpensive solutions. You see this in a lot of buildings in our region. These little kind of devices that spin around and flash the sunlight, and it deters birds. And they have versions where obviously we don't have direct sunlight around, but you have flashing lights that will kind of to deter birds. So there are things that can be done. We just have to make sure it's on Parady's radar.
Yeah, put it on their list for sure.
Absolutely. And then just really quickly, I don't know if you can see the screen here, but there is, like another awning that we're gonna put on top of there, because we were thinking about if it does rain, because the rain does still get through the original tent that's there. So, Parady's is going to be installing an awning that has like these clouds, as if it's cactus to clouds to play along with the whole theme of it, so. Well, yes, we can look at that, we can let them know.
Thank you.
All good. Any other questions?
The water, there's gonna be a lot of water.
Sorry, Chair, I'll have another one. For the all new retail spaces, is the airport providing the telecommunications for them out of your assets, or are they going to need to bring their own assets to run their businesses?
Are you asking an IT question?
I'm just asking.
Very sensitive.
Asking more of a directional question because
I appreciate it.
I know some of the buildings that have asbestos issues like this one does, and it's the last thing that's brought up. And it's not the only building in Palm Springs I'm bringing this question to because it's being missed.
Am I gonna answer that? We might want to take a look into that and then come back at the next meeting. Yeah. IT is a big issue being addressed. It's like a number one priority, and be happy to address that later.
Take your email address and we can get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big. Okay, let's move on. Marketing and internet service update.
I believe Daniel provided an update, a written update, and he didn't really have any new information. But if there are questions about his update, then I'll take that back to him.
Any questions on any of that? We revealed the sign, correct? The sign is revealed for the Agua Caliente concourse.
We have not revealed it.
All right, it's installed. It's installed tonight. We're still waiting for, this is part of the marketing group, this use is part of this deal. Where's our news person? Yes, we're still waiting for the renderings of what's being proposed for the Agua Caliente terminal. And we've already announced the concourse, as you can see, it becomes part of our regular discussion here. Do we have any updates on when we're gonna get that?
We do not. We have to have a couple of internal meetings and we're working on rescheduling that announcement. So when we have more information, I'll let the commission know.
But the renderings themselves, any promise or updates in terms of when they'll be provided to?
We're still working with the casinos and with the tribe on that.
Okay, we look forward to seeing those. Any other questions from anyone else about marketing updates? Anyone online?
No public comments.
Sounds good. Victoria, financial summary, please.
All right, I'm just gonna share my screen really quickly. So this is the financial summary ending May 31st, 2024. We're always reporting for the prior month for all of our revenues and expenditures that happened for a previous month. And this is taken in a point in time whenever the financials are ran. This is unaudited financials, so this is just a real quick summary update. I do intend on, at the next meeting, giving a lot more information about the financial summary. Since we'll have the new commissioners on board with us, I'll go into a little bit more detail about all of the different funds and the expenses and whatnot. But I just wanted to, go over the financial summary and show it on the screen here. So the customer facility charge, so the airport has 4 funds. Customer facility charges is one of the funds that we have that collects all CFC revenues from our car rental companies. And so we collect, $9 per day up to 5 days. This revenue that you'll see for the month of May in your packet is actually for all of April's revenues that we received. So the airline, the car rental companies remit their CFCs to us a month later after we do our billing. So all of the CFCs you see here are for the month of April. Our year-to-date revenues are about 9.2 million, which is actually over budget for the year. So we're at 101% of the budget. We do not have any budgeted expenditures. Budgeted expenditures in this account would include things like parking operations or anything that's related to our contract. So maybe even once we start seeing the relocation from our baggage claim for the rental car counters and moving them over to the south part of the airport, probably when we start seeing expenses hit this account. So overall for this account, there is a surplus of $9.2 million. So that's something that's really good for the airport. We are banking all of this in preparation for our consolidated rental car facility. So the next fund that we have is our passenger facility charge. That fund collects $4.39 per ticketed airline passenger. Our year-to-date revenues are about 5.7 million, which is about 89% of our budget. We do have some expenses in there of 340,000, which represents interest payments. We do anticipate getting an additional interest payment as well as the principal. So that's going to happen in June, and we should see that hopefully in our July financials if everything gets posted on time. Overall, for this account, we do have a $5.4 million surplus. Our operation and maintenance account, Fund 415, it collects all of our revenues for our airline revenues, our non-airline revenues like ground rents, as well as anything that, like our concessions for our retail and our food and beverage. You'll see that our revenue looks like it's down 18% when compared to prior fiscal year, but that's because last fiscal year we received about $15.3 million from all kinds of CARES, CRESA, ARPA, one-time funding that we're no longer going to receive. So when you actually adjust for this, we're actually up 18% in revenues when compared to prior fiscal year. So we're doing really well. That is, so total for revenues for this month is about 41.8, or for the year to date is 41.8 million. Our expenditures for year to date are 28.9 million. You'll see that's about a 23% increase when compared to prior fiscal year. And that's primarily due to all of our expenses that we have related to contractual services and planning. We've got our FIS, we've got our baggage claim, we have our restrooms. So all of those expenses are all adding up with the planning part of it. So in addition to that, we're also doing a lot more maintenance on our facilities. So you'll see a lot more things working here at the airport and us having the capability of calling those contractors to get in here and to come and fix our facilities. Lastly is our airport capital projects fund. It shows that we have a net balance of $4.4 million, and that's due to all of our projects that are coming in and us having revenues to offset that. So where we get our revenues in this account would typically be through our grant reimbursements. So through our airport improvement program funding, we will receive grants that are approved by the FAA for certain projects, and other kinds of grant funding that we could get, like another transaction, TSA, the Transportation Security Administration grants. But not to be concerned with this because we have a surplus in our operation and maintenance account, about $12.9 million. So we would be transferring, you know, some of that money over to be able to help fund the deficit that you see here. So there's nothing to worry about there. This is our cash that we have sitting in our 4 different funds. So you'll see that customer facility charge cash has about $47.3 million sitting in that fund. And each month that we continue to gain revenues and not have any expenses, we keep growing that CFC fund account. Our PFC fund has a balance of $2.7 million. And then our unrestricted airport fund has about $15 million in it. And then we have a deficit of $913,000, which again, not to be concerned with because you'll see our airport fund 415 has unrestricted balance of $15 million. And then we also have the surplus that we have with fund 415 of $12.9 million. So that concludes my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions or comments, commissioners?
Well presented.
Thank you.
Bottom line, we're in good shape.
Bottom line, we're in good shape.
Thank you. The state of the airport is in good shape. Any comments from the public or from folks on Zoom? Seeing none?
No public comments.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you, Thomas. All right, we're at AJ. Correct.
Yeah.
All right, I'm such a providing explanation for this item. We're voting tonight to move our meeting from the 17th, which is our standard date, to the 10th. We're doing this selfishly because a bunch of us are out of town and don't want to be calling in from Greece and wherever else people are going to be at that time. So the proposal is, can we agree to move the meeting to the 10th? The other reason, seriously, the other reason we want to do is we wanted to make sure that the 3 new commissioners were welcome, that everybody could be here. And it seemed like the 10th last time we asked the commission seemed to work. So we want to make sure the first impressions are great. Everybody's here for this if possible. So is there any discussion around this before we ask for a motion?
But we're also going to be rescheduling the noise committee meeting to July 10th as well.
So do I have to ask the vote?
If there's strong opinions on the.
If you do on Zoom, please raise your virtual Zoom hand.
Appreciating all the input from the public we're taking, but.
No public comment.
All right, great. Can I have a motion to move the date, please?
Commissioner Wise was the first one.
Second.
Second. Let's take a roll call.
Roll call, Commissioners Banks,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Caldwell,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
Beltman,
Yes.
Bond,
Aye.
Hughes,
Yeah.
Michaelis,
Yes.
Pye,
Yes.
Swear,
Yes.
Wise,
Yes.
Wiseman, Young.
Yes.
Thank you.
It passes. Thank you all. Appreciate the flexibility. Electronic use policy.
This one's on me. So, I know the rare time where I'm presenting an item. This is, I was just to serve as a reminder if you're doing business for the airport commission to utilize your city email address. We've been noticing some emails going around using your Gmail email address, your Hotmail for, I guess it's 2024, who has an AOL email at this point in time. But just want to remind you, the city does have an electronic use policy where city business should go through a city-run email address, and that's for a couple of reasons. The first one is it allows staff to easily verify records for California Public Record Act requirements. As a reminder, even if it's on a private email, the emails that discuss airport commission business can be disclosed to the public under the California Public Records Act. So that's one reason to stick to doing city business on your city email. And then in relation to that, city IT staff also has a way to use your time actually searching through the records and pulling those, rather than you having to save attachments and forward them off to staff. It's way easier to process those. And then finally, just from the security perspective, we have an IT staff that develops their email system, and the city emails is more secure than their normal Gmail. So this is just to serve as a reminder where if you need to do airport commission business, use your city email address. If you have any issues with using your city email address, or if there's some technical problems, staff and I can connect you to IT and we can work those out. And then I'm open to any questions or concerns.
Comments, questions? I have an issue with this because it won't, for 1,000 reasons I've been told, I don't even understand. I can't make it part of my own Outlook. I can't have it in another account in my existing Outlook for whatever those reasons are. So I have to go to Outlook.com and then it pops up. So it actually has gotten easier, and I was the one who was screaming holler about this at the beginning. So let's make sure that the new commissioners before we go to our next meeting. And if you're still struggling with it, let us know. There is a way to get to it. It's easier, even if it doesn't complement or doesn't work with your existing Outlook or whatever your business or personal life is. So okay.
Mr. Strong, yeah, that's it.
Anyone want to talk about this?
Anybody on Zoom that wishes to make a public comment? No public comment.
Thank you for that reminder and update. Okay, Harry, the capital improvement update program. So this is all in your, you're following along in your handout here.
I was just going to say, I did provide a written report, so I won't speak to all of it. However, I will touch on the master plan update for a second. So given some of the concerns around the CONRAC and some of the community input or additional input needed from the community regarding the master plan, me and Hunt and I are working on changing a strategy in terms of the working group itself and how that working group functions. So what we've been doing up until this point is using a working group which consisted of airport staff, a few city department heads, as well as a handful of some who sit on this commission. A couple of things. The first is we have FAA grant for the planning study, and that grant has a timeline. It comes with an expiration date. And so for every time a decision isn't made, that slides that timeline and puts us closer to that expiration date on the grant. The second thing is our hope here is to start being a little more transparent about the decisions that are being made, why those decisions are being made, the discussions that are being had. And so in order to do this, what we're trying to do is create efficiency and transparency here. And what we'd like to do, what we'd like to recommend to the commission is that we use the commission as the working group from now on for the master plan process. So in the coming months, you'll be seeing us come to this group with a lot more airport master plan stuff. We'll have those discussions in public. And then we can vet out what that looks like over the next couple of years. Any questions about that? All right, that's all I have.
So, that's fine. At the end of the standby. On the Measure J improvements, it says 2 of 5 projects have been approved. I thought all 5 were approved. Not true.
All of them have been approved. I must have misauthored something there. 2 of the 5 projects are in the works right now. So
that's the floor and the fountains.
Correct.
And the new seating and the shade structures, and the third was, if you remember, what
there's one something. Yeah, so the other 2 we're expecting to start working on in the fall, but 2 are underway as we speak.
If you look through the list, does anyone have, we talked about packaging, we talked about bathrooms, Is there any progress on bringing the chargers into the parking lots?
No, yeah, we're waiting on SCE for that. And part of it, so just for background here, the chargers in the lots, that was done under an SCE grant program. And so they're basically doing the legwork for that. And then, we're just responsible for the installation and the purchase of the chargers themselves. What we're waiting on is for SCE to get around to, providing basically the backbone of the system, the power supply, so that we can actually install those chargers. And that's kind of an ongoing discussion with them for months now.
Before I go to the public, any other questions from any of the commissioners on this? Public comments, please.
The mayor, really indicating one of the level of public involvement in a working group process, if I understood correctly from the discussion at the open house. Obviously, you're the public, so if the commission is being proposed to be the public representative for the working group, that's not fine, but what about additional members?
Yeah, I can answer that question very briefly, and if we need to follow up, we can. So the idea is to use the commission as the sounding board. As airport stuff still has to work through the process of making the decision. So the commission's basically being used to help make those decisions. But the thought process is we take these issues to the commission, they vet them in public, and then we use that time between meetings to go out to the community, discuss the issues, get feedback, bring those back to the commission for their decisions.
There's a lot of steps. But would it be public during the working group sessions?
They would be, that's a good question. I don't know if we can.
Are they public? Can't remember.
They're not public.
Currently, yeah, currently they're not public. They're bringing it back to the commission to be the new working group. There would be public comment periods during discussion of that item. So you would have an opportunity to speak, whereas currently they're happening in an ad hoc sense.
It would be like this, where the public comment would occur.
Yes.
But there's something else that's come from the last meeting. Decision has been a recommendation, which I think we will approve. Is there will be a series of many more of those meetings. Give the public an opportunity to see in smaller groups or provide input. So we're trying to make this as transparent as possible, but kind of the feedback was, let's find other ways, perhaps in smaller groups and more meetings, get people up to speed. I'd love to talk to you about all the things you asked about in terms of contract and everything else. We need smaller groups to do that. And so the commitment is to do that, not only for Palm Springs, but through the valley as well. So you're going to see more opportunities for public input and comment, and as well as more transparency as we move through these decisions.
See, I think the concern is that a lot of times when the public hears these things, they think, well, the decision's already been made. It's sort of a way of getting input from the public. Look, the decision's already made. The working group has come up with recommendations and like this thing with the alternatives 1, 2, 3, and then they finally get to the public and well, gosh, it looks like you guys have made decisions long ago. This is just a required process to have the public input. That's my concern. And it will be more after the fact for input than during.
Well, I can tell you, if you look at the meetings in October, November, December, the public, they were open to the public. There was a lot of discussion. And, we learn things as we move through this process. And we get a lot of feedback. And so, like I said, we're going to have more opportunities for that input. So you should be ahead.
Right, and it'll be very clear to the public that we're available to come.
Yeah.
It's often sort of when these things are happening and
we're going to do a better job there.
it's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that in our next meeting. There's a whole lot of communication strategy based on that type of feedback that we're working on. And just for reference, look at the October and December meeting. They were knocked down, drag out discussions, we were split right down the middle in terms of these things. But you'll see how things evolve in those meetings, where we're gonna add more public meetings. Anybody else have comments on this?
Anybody on Zoom, please raise your virtual Zoom hand.
All right, commissioners' request reports. Any commissioners? Any other comments or questions or requests of the staff?
I just have a comment.
Please.
Yesterday, I thought you did a wonderful job about what we do, and you were excited. Afterwards, other people became excited, but it was very exciting. I don't say much, but I'm proud to be part of this commission.
Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the feedback. I mean, when you see the breadth of what all of these commissions are doing, I mean, it is extraordinary for a city our size, how much input, how many people are involved, their fingerprints are all over everything, from recreation to pickleballs to what's happening in human rights. But this commission, you know, is evidenced by some of the feedback we've had tonight. You know, it's really shaped with some really important decisions over the next couple of years. And it's really going to change things here. Those of us who've been on the ad hoc with sessions, I mean, we fought hard to get things that we really wanted and we thought were important. I think when these things open up next fall and early next year, people are going to be really surprised and happy. And it's a result of everybody's input on these processes. So I think it's an exciting time to be here, and I'm happy that, because we got good feedback as well. It's nice. Is there anything else in your executive director report? Did I miss that, or are you good?
We did miss that, but no, there's nothing to talk about.
Oh, you done both. Okay, before we adjourn, is there anything else anybody has to say? Anything else we need to talk about?
Just real quick, I'll just say, Peter said, we'll have to find a sweet spot as to how much input public we have, because if we get too much input, we're not gonna do anything. That's why we have a commission, that's we have experts, and I think they trust us to make decisions. So again, we have to find whatever the sweet spot is, because if we have too much input, nothing will get done.
I think you're right. And the other thing is that is the consultants bring us more information and get us smarter about these decisions. We talk about the trade-offs, and there are trade-offs. You look at 1A, you look at huge trade-offs on the student side. We need to continue to understand and get smarter with what you guys are bringing us, and make sure the public's involved so they understand. We'll talk about the contract, the pros and cons here versus putting somebody else someplace else. We've talked about this for hours. And it's our job to take that back to the community and let them know this as well. So loud and clear, I think you're right. And the other thing to build on Harry's comment is we have so much time to get this thing done. So we have to be mindful that the funding that is funding all this, several $1 million to do this long range plan, that we hit our milestones. So far we have. And there are people who are asking questions, and we may revisit some of these things because of the questions people have asked. Including city council people saying, how do we get 6 million people into one board? You know, there's things like that. The traffic study that we're waiting for, which I think is going to be very telling about can we pull this off or not, is another example of that. So we'll get there, and we're going to bring the public with us as much as possible. And hopefully tonight participation will give you an example of what's possible. Final, another turning the lights off on us. Once again, Jerome, thank you for everything you've done and your commitment to us. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for showing up tonight. I know it was a long meeting. We had a lot of stuff. Staff, thank you for preparing all this. Thank you to our consultants. And we look forward to next month's meeting when we welcome you officially, Sam and the others. Have a great 4th of July. Thank you all.
Thank you.